This is fine. It's Romania Black. No, it's not fine. We're on episode 5 of Link Click, the Bridon arc. And we only have 2 episodes to go on this arc, which is concerning. Because this episode is 24 minutes long, so it is a little bit longer than last week. But it's been a solid, maybe it's been a week and a couple days since I've watched episode 4 because I had a tournament with the team I coach this last weekend. So when I would normally watch the episode, I have not been able to. So I am catching up, as it were. Now, look, I know that I will have comments from episode 3 on YouTube and episode 4 on Patreon to check later this week for episode 6. After episode 6, I am probably going to wait an extra week. I've already got something in the works to replace that spot. But after episode 6, I'm probably going to wait a week or two to let all of the comments from Patreon and YouTube filter in. And then after that, I'm going to do a reaction to all of the extras, like the promotional videos, the posters, and things leading up to the Bridon arc that I haven't been able to see. Another patron as well as Reiki have compiled everything for me, so that'll be good. But at that point, I'll be able to address all of the promotional materials as well as everybody's comments for episode 6. So that's my episodes 5 and 6. So that's my plan anyway. But we'll touch base more on that next week and confirm all that. But those are my plans. But I do have some comments from episodes 2, 3, and some notes from episode 4. So we might as well just dive into those, right? Now, Guang 1924, Guang, my person. I love the way you think because they said link click, brains be braining, gays be gaying, perfectly balanced. And I was like, yes! Although Cheng Xiaoshi has just had his first trip into the photograph. Was it planned? Was it orchestrated in a certain way? Guang clearly did not seem to anticipate this happening. So are we gonna go to the aftermath of that at the start of this episode? Daya in 1997 says for episode 2, we only see Cheng's mother visit Xiaoling's dad before she left. Cheng's dad isn't with her, which makes me wonder if he had already left and she left afterwards. Did he go to Bridon and get in trouble? Is that why the mom went to help him but warned Xiaoling's dad never to let Cheng come after them? Because he would also get into trouble like his dad. Were they trying to hide Cheng's existence from somebody such as the time agents, or they call them timekeepers, which I kind of like. I like the idea of Guang and Cheng being time agents and Liu Xiao being a timekeeper. It inscribes some possessiveness, which for Vane and Liu Xiao, possessive seems to be a word that fits them very well. So I kind of like the timekeepers. I like that. But yeah, I don't know. My theory was that the dad was already in Bridon and the mom went to Xiaoling's dad to say, hey, don't let Cheng come over here. It's not good. Now, whether the people knew about Cheng or not, I don't know. But I think that she went over afterwards with him and then they disappeared. And around that time, the earthquake happened and maybe stuff got swept under the rug. And we don't know. We don't know. But in any case, these are all very good questions. Anime Annie has some comments about episodes 2 and episodes 3. Anime Annie says, we've now got the name for Cheng Xiaoshi's parents, Cheng Weimin and Xiao. I did not connect that, for the record, that Xiaoling was talking about Cheng's mom, saying she didn't want Cheng to know at first. That didn't hit me at first during the reaction. But yeah, I thought she was referring to her own mother not wanting Cheng to go. But now we know. The bug that Zhang throws at Liu Xiao alongside his chewed licorice looks a bit like a cicada to me, or at least how they typically look in animated form, as I've never seen one in real life. I've seen one in real life. Yeah, it kind of looks like it. I could see that. And after turning my laptop 180 degrees, my brain decided it was easier than taking a screenshot and flipping the image. Been there. I'm pretty sure the initials on the bug are PH. Now, as far as what PH can stand for, other than like something to do with pH of water or the balance, I have no clue what PH could stand for. PH Cheng's? That's PF Cheng's. Anyway, I don't know. Maybe we'll find out who PH is. So far, we don't really have anybody whose initials would match up with the cicada, but we don't know. And then on the Discord, Anime Annie talked about Vane using the fan in his right hand, but in episode 1, he uses the gun in his left hand. So, alongside his eyes not being shown episode 1, there are 2 factors that could be the case. Now, Anime Annie says it could be that Vane was being controlled by someone to shoot Cheng with the left hand, or he's ambidextrous. Here's my thing, and we talked about this in the Discord. I think that, 1, they don't show us his eyes to show him using a power, because that was in episode 1 and we didn't know him exactly, so they're going to build up to show us his power later on, and they're keeping that a secret. Also, 2, we talked about this in the Discord, I don't think that Vane would let someone take control of him. That just, with what we've seen of his character so far, that does not seem to be him. He does not seem the type of person to let, like, I could never imagine, like, Li Tianchen taking control of Vane. I just can't picture it. I feel like Vane would be like, no, I'm in control of my body. I do what I want with my body, and you all just deal with it. That seems like his personality, so I think he's ambidextrous, because of course he would be. Because why not make him OP? Why not? Why not make him OP? Let's just do that. But I feel like he would be ambidextrous. Then, Anime Annie says for episode 3, Liu Xiao giving Cheng Xiaoshi a business card with KD Games on it, especially after him having just told Zhang in the previous episode about not being close with his dad, has warning bells ringing in my head. Could it be an Easter egg for us viewers? Or is it Liu Xiao's way of trying to gauge a response from Lu Guang and Cheng Xiaoshi when they see the company, KD Games, that started everything? Or is Liu Xiao actually working with KD Games unbeknownst to his brother Liu Min? There is a lot going on with the card. I don't think it's just an Easter egg, because this series knows that we are smart enough to put the pieces together, and it doesn't care if we're not smart enough. It's just gonna do it. It's gonna do the thing anyway. So I feel like it has a purpose. I honestly can't decide. It could be that Liu Xiao was trying to channel and gauge how much, if this was Lu Guang from the future that was transporting back in time, or if it was a very clueless, because here's the thing, if Liu Xiao knows that Lu Guang can time travel and has gone back into the past to alter events, but that would give the indication that this Liu Xiao knows Lu Guang from the future. And I don't know if that is certain, though. That's the thing. So it could be just a coincidence. Or I kind of want to lean towards the theory that Liu Xiao does not like his dad, and he is somewhat either embezzling or trying to corrupt his dad's organization from within. And maybe all these stories are just interconnected. Maybe Liu Xiao was trying to undermine his brother, trying to stop his brother, or trying to undermine his dad, and then Lu Guang and Cheng Xiaoshi just got involved, and that started this whole thing. I don't know, but if Liu Xiao was gauging how the two of them would react, that would mean he knows Lu Guang from the future, or someone from the future has come back and told Liu Xiao about that, or Liu Xiao is using abilities like Cheng to travel back in the past and see this. We don't know. We don't know. but there are lots of questions involved with that, right? Right. And so then, thank you, Anime Annie. Sierra 2552 says, for episode 3, I don't know if in the present Felix is still living in the dorm or not, but we will see. Yeah, when Felix gets hired by Vane, does he still live in the dorm, or has he moved in with Vane? Does he live somewhere else? Is he still with the creepy roommate? We don't know. I still think that Felix has death flags written all over him, but we'll see where that goes to from here. And then Amelia Jean-Claude says for episode 3, with the way that the redhead, aka Vane, ends up saving Felix, it almost makes me think that he changed things to make the attack happen so he could come to Felix's rescue and ensure loyalty to him. They're talking about whenever Felix is drowned in the pool, if Vane orchestrated that so that Felix would feel like he was rescued from Vane and offer his allegiance to him. I think that that's a very good possibility. I don't know. What I really want to know, and I'm sure we're not going to find that out in the next 2 episodes, but what I really want to know is, what is Liu Xiao and Vane's overall objective in terms of Cheng and Lu Guang? Why are they after them? Why do they not like them? Why do they feel like they've broken the rules? We kind of know why they've broken the rules, but how did they find out? Why do they know? Why do they care so much? What is their conviction when resolve with it? And has Vane been altering the past similarly? These are all very good questions. We think that they've altered it a little bit because of just the little tweaks that have happened in the timeline, but we got to see it through, right? And then Reiki for episode 4. I know I'm taking forever on this, but there's so much to go through. Reiki for episode 4 says the new Bahati building or bar had an eye symbol above the top. It does. It doesn't exactly match the eye on the book in the ED, but it could be connected to the organization or a sign that they could be being watched. Could be a sign of surveillance or an Easter egg to that. On Discord, we were wondering if Cheng's parents may have been running. Okay, this was Reiki's theory, and I can totally see it being the case, but I really don't want it to be the case. Reiki's like, I wonder if Cheng's parents were running a school for the gifted, like X-Men, covering up as a language school when in reality, they're learning to use their powers and abilities. So why light it on fire unless Liu Xiao's involved? Could he and Vane have a vendetta against them? Were they students from the start? My thing is, I feel like the X-Men thing is very possible, but I kind of don't want it to be the case because I told Reiki, I'm like, that seems so cliche and obvious. And what I like about Link Click is there's only a handful of people we know that have these powers. So if there was a school for the gifted, I feel like it would seem like it would cheapen the idea that only these select few have abilities. If you were going to go that route, I would want it to be that the kids that died in the fire with the school were the first set of students. Like Cheng's parents or Cheng's dad was going to set up this school, and this was the first class of it. And then Liu Xiao and Vane were like, oh no, this is a bad idea. This could get turned into they could be weaponized. They could be used as spies. They could be used as super soldiers. We don't want this. And they destroyed it right then and there. That's the only way I would be okay with the school being like Professor X and X-Men if it was like at the ground level and they stopped it, like they nipped it in the bud and stopped it right there. But then that asks questions of, well, how'd they find all these kids? How do they know about that? I liked in the live action where Lu Guang told Cheng, he's like, well, there are 8 billion people in the world. If there's 5 people with magical superpowers, that seems like it's a decent number. But if you start making that number bigger, then it starts to get a little bit convoluted, and I don't want that to happen. I personally would like it if the language school was a cover, but for something like involving espionage or government affairs, or Cheng's dad was a spy. I want something more based in realism for the story, and then Cheng and Lu Guang and Vane and Liu Xiao's abilities are just kind of the exception. But they have to function within the reality of a real world. But I don't know what direction they're going to go with that. We'll see if we find out more in this episode. And then there was the question of, did the mom not want Cheng to go to Bridon because he possibly is cultivated to have these kind of powers, like we talked about on Sketchbook Chan last week? I don't want to get too far down the theory rabbit hole unless we have concrete evidence. I'm watching the Apothecary Diaries the same time as the season, so I like to theorize a little bit, but I usually like to theorize with the evidence we have. And right now, going into this episode, we don't have a lot of evidence, so I don't want to put too much crazy conjecture out there, right? And also, I don't want Avengers shown in the schlock. It has its place, but Link Click is not the place for this to become a superhero show. And the reason why when Reiki said this, I was like, ugh, because we have had the series in season 1 set up with the Rangers and the superheroes, and I was like, oh, that could tie to it, and it could connect that way, but I like this being a supernatural tragedy, crime, drama BL. I like that genre. I don't want this to become shonen schlock, where it's like superheroes and fighting the bad guys like that. I don't want that. Not for Link Click. I like what it is, and I don't want to differentiate from that. So hopefully we don't go down that route, but we shall see. So anyway, that's what I've got. Like I said, I'll have more comments for next week when we do the final episode. I can't believe I'm saying the final episode. And then I'll wait a couple weeks till everybody catches up with episode 6, and then we will look at the extras, look at the promotional materials and answer and look through all the comments there and we'll do a final rundown of everything we know before season 3. That's the plan anyway, but anywho, thank you all so much. And after I'm done with this episode, there's a whole plethora of episode 5 black boxes on Discord that I've been so excited to get to for the discussion, but we got to get there first. So anyway, I am so excited, y'all. I hope you all are too, but we're not going to waste any more time. We are going to dive into episode 5 of the Bridon arc. Holy cow. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's do it to it. Okay. We only have 1 episode left. Well, okay, here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. We only have 1 episode left. But episode 1, originally, this whole arc was supposed to be 8 episodes, right? And the first episode was an hour long, which was technically 2 episodes. So I forgot that going into this. And now I'm like, oh, they're going to make next episode an hour long, aren't they? Aren't they? Probably. They probably are. Here's the problem. I think what they're going to do is that they're going to make it an hour long. And they're going to set a bunch of stuff up. And it's going to end on a damn cliffhanger. And we're going to have to wait till season 3. And I'm going to be like, are you kidding me? Because, so this episode was wild. And a lot happened that I was like, oh, we're just going to do that. Okay. And a lot happened, and it was a way of them tying up Cheng getting these powers, explaining them. They just dropped information about Lu Guang like they were serving, like they just put the pancakes down in IHOP. Like, here's your food. Here's Lu Guang's backstory. Bye. We'll bring you your check in 5 minutes. By the way, he's known about this power since he was 7. I'm like, wait, hold on. I was like, hold up. They just glossed over it like it was nothing. I was like, you can't do that show. It felt like Neon Genesis Evangelion. Like, we're just going to drop this bomb of information and treat it like it's nothing. And I was like, was Cheng even listening? So, and Lu Guang made the statement that he's going to make changes. That is terrifying. So we have a lot of things to talk about in this, and my dog's going to be like, you need to throw, he kept coming over like, you need to throw the toy while you're watching this series. And I thought, well, of course. So, okay, let's go over everything from the beginning. So we back up, and this is Cheng's first, where did you go when you disappeared? So I like that Lu Guang says, okay, where did you go? What did your powers do? How did this work? And had him walk through, having him say, exactly what we, the audience, knows was happening. And so then he says, but then he said, actually, I had a similar feeling before that. So it's very possible that, he said, when I found my dad's photo, I felt like I was on the street of Bridon. So his powers first manifested when he saw the portrait of the academy at Bridon. I don't know if that is a trigger, if he looked at the photo and thought of his dad and that intense feeling suddenly connected him to that place, or if Bridon has a certain power to it that connects people to that place. What the case is as far as that goes, we don't know. But he had his power kind of awaken in that moment. He's like, is there something special about the photos? And Lu Guang's just like, well, let me go into this. So then he just drops this information and says, someone once told me that many people. So I thought it was his dad at first, but Lu Guang, there's a someone. Now, who that someone is, they're not going to tell us yet, which is very tricksy of them. Once told me that many people, like us, are born special. And then he's like, special. And then he says, just like some people are good at sports, and some people are born sensitive to music. And he said, my father noticed my ability to see through photos. So he said someone told him about the powers, that some people have them, kind of like a mentor figure, but it's not his dad, because if it was his dad, he would say his dad. So someone else told him about the powers, but his dad noticed Lu Guang's ability to see through photos at what age? Did he say at age 7? When I was 7 years old. Yeah. Which, okay. I mean, that would make sense because if Lu Guang was a 7-year-old kid, he probably wouldn't know what he was doing looking in photos. And the dad's like, what the fudge is this? But that brings up a lot of questions. So if we lend this idea that I don't know if Felix has an ability or not. That's the thing. I don't know if Felix has an ability. And so I don't know about Reiki's theory about this being a school for the gifted in that regard. I don't know because we don't know if Felix has an ability yet. That's not really been revealed. It's been suspected, but we don't know. But it does make it seem as if Lu Guang was not someone that went to this school, because otherwise I feel like by now Lu Guang would know about I feel like Lu Guang would be revealing that he went to this school, but maybe he's not. Maybe Lu Guang is not revealing that he went to Bridon. Maybe he's not for obvious reasons because he knows how Cheng reacted to his dad in that moment. But what makes it so frustrating is that the Lu Guang that we are following through this arc has been through all of these situations before. So he knows what to do and he can be in control, except when things start to variate a little bit, right? So what's frustrating about that is if we want to go with the theory that Lu Guang went to Bridon as well and was a student here and survived as well, because that whole one survivor theory, I think, is bullshit. I think there are more than one survivor. Felix is obviously an outlier to that already. Felix lived through the fire. He was there in the background. Wang Qing has lived. Hell, Vane and Liu Zhao could be there too, and we just don't know it yet. There could be a whole plethora of people that were involved in that school because it seemed to be from like age kindergarten to high school, because she seemed to be 18 at the time. Or we'll talk about that with the notes from Discord here in a second. So yeah, so it's very possible that Lu Guang could have been at this school too and survived and just isn't telling Cheng. And the thing is, we as the audience can't know that because Lu Guang has technically already been through all of the actions in this arc. So we can't say, oh, well, how did Lu Guang know how all of this stuff functions at this school? Isn't that suspicious? Well, no, because he's already been through it before. So you could just use that as the excuse. Now, do I think there's a chance that Lu Guang did not go to this school? Absolutely. And Lu Guang is from somewhere else and some other mentor told him about it. And his dad took maybe Lu Guang to that person and they explained it to him. Possibly. Could that person that taught Lu Guang have been from this school in Bridon? Maybe. Like I said, I don't quite like the X-Men School of the Gifted theory because it seems kind of cliche, but I would be okay with it if Cheng's dad was like starting the ground floor of it and this was like the first school and then many of them died and the ones that escaped are the ones we're seeing now. Sure. Fine. Because, you know, it's taking place in Bridon, but like Wang Qing, there seems to be students from all over, so LinkClick's not going to give us all the answers. But how dare they? How dare they run through that information about Lu Guang like it was nothing? Like we haven't been licking the floors for crumbs the last 2.5 seasons. And then they just throw this out there like it's yesterday's trash. How dare you, show? They're just trolling us at this point, right? They're just trolling us. So yeah. And they're like, so you mean, and then of course, Cheng, of course, I love that he gets his swagger back being like, we're heroes of an anime. And see that there, whenever he said that, it felt like such a meta fourth wall breaking moment of Lu Guang being like, now hold on. No, we are not. But be like, are we heroes of an anime? And Lu Guang's like, are you done? I love that he kind of blinks there and saying, well, next question. He's like, why are you ignoring me? And he says, I'm not here for kidding. And he's like, entering a photo, possessing the photographer, and going back in the past is very cool. He's like, I'm definitely the chosen man. And he's like, well, what happened to you? I like that Lu Guang just kind of ignores the question. So again, we don't know how much Lu Guang knows from this arc about Cheng's dad. We don't know how much he knows. I don't know. We'll talk about the parents here in a second with season 1 in the background, but as far as we know, Lu Guang's like, I don't know. Again, I'm kind of in the mindset that season 1 Lu Guang was someone that had not gone back in the past yet. Now, season 2 Lu Guang, I think, is a little different. But I feel like season 1 Lu Guang had not gone into the past yet. And he did not know about all the prior events. But he'd been in the Bridon arc before. So again, it's like, what do we find out? I feel like we need to connect to episode 1 of season 1 to get the full circle, full picture. Right? Maybe. He's like, I heard someone crying for help and I rushed into the fire. And he's like, the school had almost been burned down and there were corpses everywhere. And then I heard a woman's voice. And he's like, a woman, and she shouted my dad's name and said the fire was premeditated. And I followed the voice, and then I saw 2 people. And one of them's clearly the dad, and then the other one's this woman that we don't know who it is. But she had like reddish hair, so I don't know if she's related to Vane. Maybe she could be. Who knows? I don't think it's Cheng's mom. So then who could it be? Now, I'm going to bring up what was posted in the Discord a little bit, because I thought this too once we saw Cheng Xiaoshi's dad. And that is Reiki saying, after seeing Liu Min's dad and Cheng Xiaoshi's dad, can we have a paternity test on Liu Xiao? Yeah. Can we please? Because, yeah, what if the woman in the fire is Liu Xiao's mom? What if Cheng Xiaoshi's dad was cheating on Cheng's mom with this woman? And what if they had Liu Xiao? What if Liu Xiao and Cheng Xiaoshi are half brothers? What if they are? I would not be surprised, because Cheng Xiaoshi's dad seems like a very flawed individual. And this episode leads me to think that him and the mom divorced. Maybe she found out what was going on in Bridon and was like, oh, hell no. And they divorced, but then she caught wind of him possibly being in trouble, and so she decided to go to Bridon. Who knows? But she didn't want Cheng to go because of what was going on. Maybe because of the superhero school. Maybe because she found out that Cheng was with another woman. Maybe because she found out that Cheng has a half-brother, which is Liu Xiao. I don't know. I don't know. I'm really curious. So, but yeah, Liu Xiao, once we see pictures of him with the glasses and the hat and all the black, like their attire, their clothing is very similar. And the choice to wear glasses is very similar. And I don't know if Liu Xiao is doing that intentionally to get a rise out of Cheng Xiaoshi, or if he's imitating his biological dad's fashion, or if it's just a subversion, or if it's just intentional. But they wear similar styles. They wear similar styles of clothing. What can we do? So yeah, we'll talk more about these other comments in here because there's some really, really good ones, but I want to get to it in the episode. But yeah, there's no telling who this woman is. She could be Liu Xiao's mom. We don't know. I want to know, the big thing at this point is the question of why. Why? What is the motive? Now, Cheng Xiaoshi's dad seems like a pretty shady guy. Seems like a very shady individual. Cheng was not. I was very surprised with Cheng's reaction towards his dad in this episode, and we'll talk about it. The big question is, why is Liu Xiao and Vane and Felix all, like, are they all working against Cheng Xiaoshi and his dad? Is there a connection there? What is Felix left out and it's just these two mainly? There's a lot of questions with this, of who's involved and how much they are involved in, and when we go to that scene of Vane at the very end of this with Felix and the dinner table, we'll talk more about that. But there's a trope in a lot of anime and donghua where characters assume, not always accurately, but assume that a son or daughter of a character is bad because his or her father or mother or parental figure is bad as well. And so could Cheng be targeted because they know his dad is shady as F, and they're like, well, you're his son, so you're probably shady as F too. But the dad even says this in this episode to Wang Qing, being like, my son isn't like me. He's like his mom. He's a good kid, has a good heart. I don't want him to be around me because I'm a bad person, essentially is what he says. And so does Liu Xiao know that? Or does Liu Xiao take after the dad and is a nice person? Or what about Vane? What are their connections? We don't exactly know how Liu Xiao and Vane are connected to Cheng's dad. Once we find that out, I think a lot of pieces will fall together as to why they are doing this and why they are targeting Cheng, but we don't know that information yet. So it's hard to figure out why and what they're doing. We also don't know Vane's ability or if Felix has an ability. So we don't know. These things we don't know. But yeah. So we go back and Cheng's like, he's still not back. Is it because he's already dead? Now, Lu Guang says don't jump to conclusions so quickly. That's such a miserable line to say in this. That is such a miserable line to say. You know why? Because there's chances that Lu Guang knows if Cheng's dad is alive or not. There is a chance he knows already because he's already seen this arc play out. Lu Guang knows everything that's supposed to happen in this arc that we don't know. But he is also realizing that little things are changing along the way that are leading things to not be in the correct order or to be different than what he knows. And so he's trying to keep everything, we'll talk about it here in a second, but he's trying to keep everything controlled from what he knows, but he already knows what's going to go down. He knows what we're going to find out as the audience. Lu Guang is already privy to what we are about to see in episode 6, and we don't know what that is. So for him to say, oh, well, don't jump to conclusions about your dad being dead. Bitch, that is cruel. That is mean. How dare you, sir? There was a survivor of the fire. She might know where your father is. Well, it seemed like she didn't have a great relationship with his dad, but I checked clues for the survivor on social media. Look at you scrolling Facebook. She was a student of the language school and went missing shortly after being rescued. Yeah, so we get the student ID code, which, by the way, the student ID number of Wang Qing, when typed using the Chinese 9 key, according to Discord, gives the result fake death ability user. Shut the frick up. So Wang Qing, what we find out about Wang Qing, Reiki said that after checking the timeline, Wang Qing was 18 at the time of the fire. Was at the time of the fire 18, and they were born, we'll get their exact date. It said that we don't think we ever got a definitive date for when Cheng's parents went missing, but he was around the same age as when the earthquake happened in 2008. So the earthquake that we saw in season 1 that they went back to was in 2008. So we're gonna tie back to that. But with that, the student ID for them means fake death ability user. So is the fake death the ability, or is it just that they faked their death but are actually alive and they are also an ability user? I mean, I wanted to guess that she was an ability user, but again, that goes with the whole school topic and the whole school conversation in theory. So, yeah, especially the moment I saw Felix and her there, I'm like, okay, is this Professor X's school for gifted children, or is it just all coinky-dink? I don't know. But we'll see about this. But yeah, the student ID, those numbers, I can't believe that. That is so wild. But we couldn't see the student ID clearly, so we need to go back in the photo to see. Now, I love the idea. Also, I love Lu Guang being so handsy. And Lu Guang's like, okay, whenever you look at the photo and clap your hands, that's what triggers the ability. Now, Lu Guang says, instead of doing this, you could hit my hand and I can help you and we can do it together. And Cheng rightfully asks, how do you know all of this? How did you know about my powers? How do you know all this? It seems like you've known this previously, and which he has. And Lu Guang's like, well, someone told me all this. That's how I know all this. If this is all a giant ass time loop, y'all, as long as the conditions are met. Now, then we saw, I like that Lu Guang gives Cheng the explanation of why you can't go back and change the past. Because again, Lu Guang does not want to unravel the timeline exactly. So it all makes sense why he tells Cheng, you can't go back and prevent this fire from happening. It will create too many variables of how this could go about. He's like, you possessing the individual and then burning their hands has already affected someone in the past. Just borrowing someone else's body to uncover the truth could affect them. So he says, before we take action, we have to do our 3 rules. I love this being a film reel as well. And Lu Guang having the rose tinted glasses, like everything will be fine. And of course, Cheng Xiaoshi having the 3D glasses. And then we establish our 3 rules that we've had since season 1, which is about the 12 hours, about listening to Lu Guang, and about let the past be and let the future be. Because you can't change either. Now, this leads to what Reiki pointed out, and I agree with this. They said, speaking about the uncertainty or certainty part of the discussion from episode 4, I think that Lu Guang meant he knows with certainty that all of the events led to Cheng Xiaoshi's death. But by going back in the past, he has created uncertainties, events that shouldn't have happened at the time, like Cheng Xiaoshi not asking him to look at the photo right away, the early meeting with Lu Zhao and Vane. And so these uncertainties changed the certainty of the timeline that Lu Guang knew, so he wants to bring the timeline back to when he knows, so as to prevent Cheng Xiaoshi's death. Yes, basically, long story short, Lu Guang knows that he is working within this sphere of the known. He knows this is where he's like, I know this. I'm trying to prevent this train here from reaching this point here. He's like, I've got to prevent this train and stop that from happening. But I know that it's all within this realm of possibility. As long as I know the realm of possibility, I can keep trying to make it work and trying to change things, and I'm in control. But with every little variance, things start to veer away. And if Cheng changes too much, it'll get outside of that realm of control, and then things could go off the rails, and Lu Guang will not only not be able to save him like he wants to, but he may not predict who else will get involved, who else will get hurt, what might happen to him as well. So he won't be in control at all, and it could be chaos. So everything he tells Cheng, and now that we, the audience, are seeing this scene, all those prior times where we've been questioning, well, Lu Guang is breaking the rules. He's going back in the past and changing things. Isn't that hypocritical for him to tell Cheng Xiaoshi to not go back and change the past? Yeah, that's the point. He wants to keep everything within a realm of control, and Cheng calls him a control freak because he is. He's wanting to keep everything within his grasp so he can try to change it and save Cheng's life. But if Cheng or anyone else goes back and tries to do the same thing he's doing, it will possibly block that from happening. So yeah, he's being hypocritical and knows that he's doing it. And it's just... There went my phone. So yeah, it's wild, y'all. Absolutely wild. But that makes a whole lot more sense now, to be honest. So, oh my God. This episode, and he does the whole thing with the pinball about one thing having a huge impact on the future. So then Cheng's like, how do you know so much? It seems you were ready for this all along. And Lu Guang's like, oh, I had someone telling me about all this before. Like I said, weren't you listening? And so then he's like, well, why didn't you tell me before? And he's like, well, you're naive and reckless and overly sympathetic. And, also you always act on impulse. So he's like, I had reasons not to tell you, which I thank God there was some levity and humor in this episode because we needed it drastically. So then, and it shows him this is called being a partner. Now, I think it is very important that we have Lu Guang reaching for Cheng's hand, the home and away, everything is set at 0 because this is the first time they met. And this is where everything is set at 0. Is him the first time he asks Cheng to be his partner and start this entire thing is what put it into motion. Now, some people have noted in the past, they're like, if Lu Guang had never met Cheng, would Cheng be alive? It's possible, but it's also possible not. We don't know for sure, right? And Cheng's smile when he says that Lu Guang is so annoying, I'm like, Sho, why are you doing this to me? Now, I want to make very big note here that Lu Guang, sitting on the bed, holds his hand out to Cheng. And later on, we're going to see Cheng's dad hold his hand out from the same position of Cheng looking down at him. But the difference is Lu Guang is doing everything in his power to save Cheng no matter what. He's like, everything he's doing is to save Cheng. Whereas everything Cheng's father was doing was to help everyone else but his son. So the difference and contrast there, insane. Insane in that moment, right? And so then they go back, and then we get the OP. How dare they? How dare they? So yeah, anyway, let's get past this OP, shall we? So we need to go back and look through this and see if we see anything in the hallways, anything that would be noteworthy. So we see a bunch of kids roaming through the hallway. We see looks like a Hershey bar commercial. Looks like some kind of Goberall. Don't really know about that. We see a bunch of kids there. What does it say there? Looks like it's maybe in German. Who knows? And we go into the restroom where we see the girls that are slapping Wang Qing's arm. The bruising of the hand with the phone? Bitch, that hurt. That would hurt. I've had blood blisters before. I had one on my knee for like a month where I was kicked by a cow. It hurts and it sucks. And those blood blisters stay for a while. But that sucks. Where they're just like sitting there. Now, somebody in the Discord wondered if the girl with the black hair or one of the others was Vivian. But I didn't think so. But Anime Annie pointed out that their names in the credits are Amy and like Stacy or something, which could be English names, but Vivian's an English name too. However, it could be that Vivian was at the school. We don't know. She mentioned Bridon, so she could have been one of the students as well, but she didn't seem to have powers. So, and it could be that it was just a language school and maybe Felix was just there and he doesn't have any abilities. But maybe it was just a school there that also conveniently doubled as a place for Cheng's dad to find people that had these abilities and teach them while posing it as a language school with the other students. Maybe. I would be down with that if it like had a secret underground training facility, but the rest was posed as just a regular school. I'd be down for that. I think that'd be kind of cool, actually. But these girls and their nails. I already kind of feel for Wang Qing a lot. I barely know her. She gives off Anime Annie vibes from Attack on Titan. She gives off Annie vibes. But yeah, these girls that are getting her to help cheat, and she's this loner that is the top of the class. Okay. Interesting. I want to know more about Wang Qing, but I don't know how Lu Guang got this photo. How did he get this photo of these two girls? The student you possessed is Wang Qing. She is the top student at the school, but kind of a loner, and some students hate her. And it seems these two bully her pretty often. Okay. Yeah, the moment I saw her, I'm like, okay, you're the blonde from the opening. But the question is, in the opening, is she the same? Is the same woman walking away from the building with the arm and the bandages and everything? Is it the same woman that is the blonde that we know of in the OP as well? Anime Annie pointed out that it's possible that she wears the all black sleeves in the opening to hide her scars from the fire. Maybe. Possibly. We don't know. But it's like, where are we going to go in the next 12 hours? So the one girl doing the kabedon of her against the bathroom wall also gave me vibes wondering if Wang Qing is, possibly into any of these girls. Like if any of these girls were in a relationship in the school, maybe. I don't know. You have the black hair and the blonde hair vibe that's in a lot of ships, so could be possible. So they ask her to cheat for the test. And then, damn, when they knocked her into the sink, that was brutal. That hurt a lot. I was like, that sucks. I was like, damn it. So yeah. So then we have Cheng, who's mad at the idea of her getting... Now, here was the one thing. Okay, when Cheng is... We'll see that same angle later where Cheng is like washing their face in the sink and has like the blood coming down their nose and they kick the bucket and the mop falls over and the bucket falls over. I'm going to look at that again when we get to it. But later in the episode, You see the mop and the bucket on the ground, but you also see Cheng standing up there mad. And then later, I'm pretty sure it's the same pose, but with Cheng on the floor and water surrounding them. So like, were they flashing back to what that scene was before Cheng possessed her body? Or is that a different timeline? And they were re-seeing this, and the first timeline was different from this one? We're going to go back and look at that scene again when we get later on into it. But yeah, Cheng's like, what happened after that? I don't know. When they oppress others, they probably didn't realize they were oppressed too. Yeah, and so Cheng's like, fine, what do we do next? Wang Qing is the top student in the school, so you have to answer all the questions correctly. I love that Lu Guang walks Cheng through it because they're like, damn it, this will probably be an easy test. As soon as they said I'll ace the test, I was like, oh, it's going to be in English and going to be ridiculously hard. Right? They're like, I'll be perfectly fine. I'm the top of the class. And then we see, okay, now in the classroom, do we see any students that look familiar? We don't see any red-haired students like Vane, so that's not here. We don't see any of them. But yeah, looking at the test, this is awful. I mean, two equations, a linear equation there, so 2x plus 2y equals 2. The system has no solution. Why do you say the system has no solution? Why would you do that? What is the point? So which equation could bring the other equation? I don't want to think about that. And then if 3x, okay, now the one, number 6, I could probably do that one. So if 3x plus 2. Okay, so let's see if we solve number 6. Number 6 is 3x plus 2. You know how it's been like 15 years since I've done a math problem like this. This is really bad. Equals x plus 2. Then what's the value of x? Okay, well, you want to get x by itself, correct? So do you divide by x plus 2? You want to divide by 3. So you can get rid of that. But then you have that. But then you want to add 5 to both sides to get to that. Ah! It's been too long since I've done a math problem. No. Oh, there's a word problem. We could do that one. I don't know the answers to these. When am I going to have to solve what x is? Oh my God. Yeah, what is this about? I'm with Cheng. Nope. It's been so long. Okay. I like Cheng being like, I don't like having to read this in English. But the dad in the back, y'all, oh my God. Also, he really does look like Liu Xiao. It's kind of scary. So the one guy in the back, whenever okay, so what Lu Guang gives him the answer, right? I love Cheng being like, we're going to fall down together and do the ultimate answer. The exam super move, C. I'm glad that China is on board with the U.S. excuse as well. I'm glad it is a universal rule of thumb that when you don't know, you answer C. I'm glad that that is not just a U.S. expression. I'm glad that is worldly, that it has transcended cultures. I'm so glad. It makes me feel so happy. When in doubt, choose C for all. And Lu Guang's like, please pick B. He said B, didn't he? The first answer was B. Okay, 2x plus 2y. Really? Oh, Lu Guang. Now, Lu Guang clearly seemed to have had time to answer this question, or look up the answers. Now, Cheng's dad seems to know that they're cheating. The question is, does Cheng's dad know that someone has possessed Wang Qing? Does he know it's his son? Does Cheng's dad have an ability and can know these things? Is Cheng's dad clairvoyant or telepathic? We don't know. We don't know. So it's so frustrating because in this world where we've met all these characters that have abilities, to know that there's somebody right there that could have an ability, but not, one, know if they do or not, or two, know what it is absolutely terrifying. But they're sitting there with a smirk on their face like they know what's up, right? So at some point, there was a note that Cheng had 54% battery on his phone. I don't know if that's relevant, but it seems like it could be. So I don't know. So they answer the second question and we just go through all the answers. All of these problems just look terrible. No, thank you. A brutal exam indeed. And so then Cheng looks over and she's asking to copy. Now the one kid looks up. Okay, look, the one kid looked up in the back and their eyes are glowing silver. The one kid looked up in the back and their eyes are glowing silver. I saw that in the reaction, but there was too much happening and going on. I'm taking a photo of that because I'm like, did that kid have an ability like the time agents? Do they have an ability? Because they looked up and their eyes were glowing silver, like they were using an ability, or like someone was possessing them and watching. I swear that is not a coincidence. Why would they be looking up with silver eyes, right? Why would that be? Or are they just hiding the students with abilities in this class alongside others that don't have abilities, right? I don't know. I'm so curious. So, but here's the thing. When that kid looked over at Cheng with the answers there, that's when Lu Guang's ability messed up, right? So as soon as we saw the silver-eyed kid look over at Wang Qing, that's when suddenly Lu Guang's ability messed up. Now, in the past, there has been another time that Lu Guang's ability messed up, and that was with the twins, right? When he wasn't feeling good, and the twins, whenever Cheng had embodied the body of the sister, that's when Lu Guang's ability was messed up. But I thought that at the time, Lu Guang's ability was messing up because of the involvement of Li Tianqin, right? So I thought that Lu Guang's ability, it either messed up for one of two reasons. It either messed up because of interference from Li Tianqin, or because at the time he was in the hospital and he'd been stabbed, or because he was hospitalized and was injured, right? In this situation, it's either that Lu Guang was exhausted, which he did look sweaty there, like he was exhausted and tired, which he's been the entire time, so that could be a reason for it, or the silver-eyed kid was interfering. One of the two. And we know that silver eyes are a trait that are in this series because Zhang, the guy in the casino, had them as well. Now, this isn't Zhang because the age difference doesn't make sense, but this kid that looked at Lu Guang could have used their powers, and it interfered with Lu Guang's connection with Cheng in that moment. I'm calling that. I'm saying that's exactly what happened. It's that or he was exhausted. One of the two. But yeah, in that moment. And then yeah, but Lu Guang just being like, oh my God, can you hear me? And Cheng's like, where are you, Lu Guang? What's going on? The superpower circuit shorted out. And that's when the one girl's wanting help on the exam. But we don't see the kid. The kid in the back is looking up in front of them too. So I don't know. I can't tell. I can't tell anymore. But they're like, I still have the superpower for the exam. Pick the shortest. And they're like, a function graph. I love the animation in this episode. The animation, the shading and everything is amazing. I loved it so much, but I love it's like a function graph. How am I supposed to know the answer? It ends up being D. But the way that Lu Guang uses the pencil with the mirror, I would have never thought about that. The ultimate move. I would have never thought of using the mirror with the pencil. That is insane. And looks over to the other kid. Oh my God. Ridiculous. And then Lu Guang's like, you're about to get caught. I mean, Cheng's dad looks exactly like Liu Xiao. I'm just saying. So the use of tea is interesting because we've seen tea be shown with Wang Qing before in the OP. Also the black cups and black saucers, like super villain much. So, okay, there's lots of things to note. The little tiny planetarium that is on the desk kind of looks like the planetarium thing in the ED that Cheng is spinning around. Kind of looks like that. Kind of looks similar to it. So that's interesting with the two planets orbiting. It also kind of reminds me of Liu Xiao's necklace as well. So there's that. Also, Liu Xiao wearing a necklace similar to Cheng's dad is fun. They look so similar. I am glad that Cheng realized immediately who it was, that it was his dad, because I kept wondering if that was going to be like a reveal later, but he knew from the start that it was him, and it kind of just built up from there. I honestly thought that Cheng was going to have a much more explosive reaction to his dad. I thought that Cheng was going to mess up and get distracted. And I mean, Lu Guang kept him in check, but I thought Cheng was going to go off the rails seeing his dad or mess things up for everybody. That's what I thought was going to happen because it's his dad in this moment. So I thought it was going to be a much bigger ordeal than it was, but Cheng surprisingly kept calm, and I was kind of amazed by that. But yeah, that little gyrosphere there, it looks exactly like the necklace that Liu Xiao has that's on his desk. That's so weird. So then he sets the teacup down and says, honesty is important. And he says, I know you're talented. Something must have happened for you to do this. Now, is he talking about talent in terms of her abilities or talent in terms of, you know, just being in the class, right? Also, Cheng's dad is a soul patch. We can't trust characters with a soul patch. That's a rule of thumb. You never trust a man with a soul patch. Just count it out right now. Count them out, make them an antagonist, go from there. And like, every time I ask, you just keep silent. So then he goes on this thing about his son. When they do the close-up of his eyes, and because his eyes are gray and Cheng's eyes are brown, when they do a close-up of his eyes and the glasses, I'm like, it's Liu Xiao has the gray eyes and the glasses too. And they're not glasses like he has an ability, so I'm like, show. And he says, Wang Qing, do you remember that I mentioned my son to you before? And then Cheng gets kind of like, he's always been a troublemaker, causing chaos wherever he went, but he has a good heart. And he says, with his mom's guidance, I know he'll grow into someone with a strong sense of justice. I should have been there for him more, but I wasn't a good father. Now, to me, that makes it sound like they had a divorce. That makes it sound like the parents split up. And the dad was like, you raise my kid, I'm going to leave. Now, whether Cheng was privy or not to his parents' divorce, or if the mom just said he'd gone to work, we don't know. Or if he just left around the time this all happened. Because to me, I feel like Cheng and Felix are about the same age. So we saw Felix in this episode and he looked like he was 8 or 9, which seems to be about the time that he left Cheng before the earthquake. So that timeline would add up, theoretically. He says, as parents, we're supposed to guide our kids. Maybe fate brought you all so I can make up for my mistakes. That line there, this entire conversation, it just made me feel like Cheng Wei-shin, it just made it feel like Cheng's dad, Wei-min, knew that it was Cheng he was talking to. It just made it seem like he knew that someone was there. And I'm going to give you a spoiler for the live action. So if you've not watched the live action, there's going to be a little spoiler right here. Go watch it. It's still really good. And there's an episode where one of the characters, through a whole series of events, figures out that it's Lu Guang and Cheng Xiaoshi talking to them through another person. And they figure it out and they're like, oh, okay. And so this kind of reminded me a lot of that moment where the way that he said things a certain way made me think I was like, are you telling Cheng this more than Wang Qing? Are you telling him this as like, hey son, I know that's you. I'm sorry. Can you tell? And then it just backfired on him when Cheng got mad at him. I don't know. We don't know, right? We don't know. Because then we have this moment here where he's like, I could teach you about integrity, about how to conduct yourself, and all the right ways to live. Because that seems like such a weird thing to say to Wang Qing, right? Like, I could teach you integrity and how to conduct yourself and do all this. That seems like such a weird thing to say to her. It doesn't seem like a weird thing, though, to say to your son that you know is there through their abilities. But I don't want to be a strict teacher. I'd rather be your friend. Even a family elder. That just seems like that, right? And he's like, we meet each other here. Isn't it because we all need a home? Like, yeah, we meet. I want to go back to that conversation. Because it's a very dual-sided conversation. Like him saying, I'm making up for my mistakes starting this school and doing this. But it also could be like, I know that that's you, Cheng, so I'm making up for my mistakes telling you all of this. And so what he essentially says after this is saying, as he gets up out of the chair, I could teach you about integrity and about how to conduct yourself. So we say integrity, conducting oneself. Okay. And he says all the right ways to live. That seems like a weird thing to say about a language school, right? Like, you're just there taking English lessons. What about, like, all the right ways to live? Okay. I mean, I guess teachers do that, but I don't want to be a strict teacher. I'd rather be your friend. So he says, I'd rather be your friend than a teacher. There are some creepy connotations with that, and I'm just going to go ahead and say it because it was on my mind the moment it happened in the episode, but this is an 18-year-old girl. And I'm just going to say it. I know it seems obvious. This is an 18-year-old girl that is in distress, that is in a vulnerable situation, and she's come to this older male authority figure asking for help. And for him to say, I don't want to be a strict teacher, but I'd rather be your friend, to this 18-year-old girl, there is just, and maybe it's not meant to be that way, but there is a creepy undertone to that I'm not real happy with. And I was like, I got a little creepy vibe there. Like, are you overextending yourself just a wee bit? Or are you just, or maybe it's just me thinking that that's just weird. Saying, I'd rather be your friend, even a family elder. And I was like, stranger danger is really, I'd rather be a friend or family. Which again, if it's a double-sided conversation, it meant two ways. And then when he extends the hand, he says, we meet each other here because we all need a home. So basically, this school, quote unquote, is a home for the lost, essentially. I'm meeting you here because we all need a home. It gives a weird connotation if this is supposed to be just a school, right? It doesn't feel that way. It was giving little X-Men vibes. I'm like, oh, this is a school, huh? But it's also a home for you waywardly children? What? And then he holds his hand out, to reach towards her in the light, saying, Wang Qing, trust me. I don't know. When he says trust me, it gives vibes like Liu Xiao, like, actually, no, I'm not going to. And it also gives vibes of him trying to tell Cheng, like, I'm your dad, trust me. And it's the polar opposite vibes as what Lu Guang gave him earlier. And then Cheng smacks the hand away, which I'm so proud of Cheng for smacking the hand away. Now, okay, then we saw the same scene where they show the bucket of water and that there, and the two girls, it looks like, but yeah, okay, well, the bucket's in a different place, but it was the same angle as it was earlier. Okay. And then Cheng can see all the memories, and when she sits up, he sees the parents being away and him being by himself. And he says, you're a liar, and smacks the hand away. What is interesting about this is that every other possible antagonist that we have met in this season so far, Felix, Vane, Liu Xiao, Cheng has gladly taken their hand and shook it. No questions asked. But the dad, we did not shake his hand. And if it turns out the dad is innocent and the other three are not, then that's going to be such a twist. Such a coincidence, right? But Cheng turns down the hand and says, trust you. Tell me how to trust someone who doesn't care about me. Now, Cheng's dad says, well, I do care about you, but has a lot of sweat. Now, Cheng's words also have a double meaning because he's saying them as Wang Qing, but he's talking about himself. He's like, if you really cared, you wouldn't have drugged me out of the test like this for everyone to see, which is true, which is very true. And said, if you really cared, then you would have stopped them before I ended up with all these scars. And the way that Cheng's dad reacts is like he didn't know about it. And they're like friends, family. Where were you each time I needed you? Now at that point, Cheng's like, how about when I was at home? You're just a hypocrite. A hypocrite who'd rather be kind to strangers than even see his own son. And that's when Lu Guang's like, I'm going to let you have this moment to talk about this, but then I'm going to need you to back up. And he's like, why should I trust you? We'll say this. Cheng's dad has a very like sincere, I'm hurt face that is very much like his son's. Just so we're clear. And like, why should I trust you? Also, the tea looks a lot like blood dripping, which is, I'm sure, intentional. So then Cheng says, you have no idea what I've been through, which could apply to Wang Qing as well. Just due to some difference. I've been judged and I've been ignored and I've been bullied by everyone around me, which could not only apply to Wang Qing, but also Cheng's past as well. Saying I was waiting for this nightmare to end. Which is so freaking sad and makes me so happy that Lu Guang is in his life. Also knowing that Cheng dies in the future, like, what the fudge show? Why would you do this to us? Why? And then we go back to saying no one came back. And if all that waiting was for nothing, and then we see the Bridon photo, then why do you leave me with hope? Why? And that's when Lu Guang's like, okay, now you're getting off topic, and the whole leaving hope does not work. Now it's nighttime in the real world, which is interesting. So a part of me wondered, like, with it being nighttime, was that an indicator of like a different timeline? I don't think so, but it was interesting. And then Cheng sits back down and just is sad. And now Cheng's dad goes to touch Wang Qing, but ends up not doing it, which is interesting. And that's when we see Mr. Cheng, and there's a little tiny child saying, it's time. Now, the little kid saying, it's time, little tiny Felix, is also the creepiest thing. What do you mean it's time? Do they know? Does this, like, that moment where little tiny Felix stands there in front of Cheng's dad and says it's time, I'm like, are they all in on it? Do they know that this is supposed to happen, that this event's supposed to happen? He's supposed to leave the room so that Cheng can search through the stuff to find the information on Wang Qing? Is he in on it? What is... We don't know. We don't know, but that is definitely Felix. That is most definitely Felix. And then it almost feels like baby Felix is the frickin' ghost of Christmas future. Come to tell Cheng's dad that this is the last time he's going to see his son, whether it's in Wang Qing's body or not. Absolutely insane. Also, the two teas that have spilt over and the fact that they both are like, create this sort of yin and yang. They create an hourglass on the table, which is so bizarre and wild. It's like, what the fudge? And then he starts to walk away and tells Wang Qing to wait here, saying he'll be right back. But like, what did you go out there with Felix to do? Why did you have to leave the room? And then Lu Guang says you should have noticed who he is. Obviously, after all this time, meeting under such a circumstance would make anyone lose control. And Cheng's like, yep, let's keep going. Then let's move fast. Okay, so they go there looking for information. They pull out one drawer, and there is a note there, like a little envelope of something in there. and then an eraser and some books and pencil cases and whatnot. And they're like, check the student files. And then they open one thing. Okay. Meanwhile, there is Felix out there with him, talking with him about something. What are you talking to him about? What was it time for? For him to recite the ABCs to you out in the hallway? Were you guys revealing what was going on? What are you planning? What is this? It feels so weird. I don't understand what you brought him out to the hallway for. Okay, and then there's the book. When they open up the drawer there's a book with an eye on it. What the fudge, show? Why? What are you doing? And then there's the number. And we see student information file. Okay. So they look it up. And we don't see what he's telling Felix. We don't see what we're telling them. Okay. I wanted to go back and see if we saw anything with the people in the book. Okay. There was a girl there with blonde hair. There was the other two girls that were teasing them. There was another girl. There was the guy with the glasses, but we don't get to see who he is. He was the guy, I think, that had the silver eyes, but we don't get to see anything with him. And then there's Wang Qing. Okay. So Wang Qing's birthday is 1990. So if she was 18, then around the time this fire happens would be 2008. And that would be the same time as the earthquake, around the time when his parents went missing. Funny that. Funny that. Imagine that! Quinkydink, isn't that something? Uh-huh. Sure. So they look for the information, and Lu Guang's like, he's coming back, and then he decides to go back, and when he walks over, and I don't know what conversation he had with Felix. I have no clue why Felix said it's time, and they went out in the hallway, had this moment, and then he left. I have no clue what the point of that scene was. Unless we find out later. And then him opening the door literally is the moment, and then he opens up the door and comes back in and says, sorry for keeping you waiting, and then she's sitting there. Uh-huh. Like, what happened? Yep. I wrote down all the personal information, and I didn't expect Wang Qing would be the survivor we've been looking for. Uh-huh. So, how do we find her? And that's when Lu Guang is like, well, the police isn't going to help us because they've obviously been covering this up. We're going to have to seek a special way. And they're like, what do you mean a special way? I like that Lu Guang doesn't want to look at Cheng because Lu Guang already knows what's going to happen next and we don't even know. And so then he says, basically, Vane. Vane should be well connected. And Cheng's like, that guy that was like happily beating up the one guy. I love them when they cut back to the football player throwing punches at him. And he just looks so happy in that moment. Like he's terrifying. Vane is Aizen from Bleach. And I am terrified of him. He's too smug. He's too confident. Or maybe he's Geen. And Liu Zhao is Aizen. I don't know. But anyway, he's like, you're sure you don't seem to like that man very much? You guys didn't seem to get along at all. And Lu Guang says, well, that's because I wasn't used to his personality. I don't like this at all. Because Lu Guang is being like, oh, well, I just didn't understand him. But now I kind of have an idea of who he is and we can do this. I don't like this at all. I don't like this. And then he's like, he's a little too enthusiastic. Yeah, that's an easy way to put it. And he says, you're quite shy. And Lu Guang says, well, maybe. He looks down at the watch and it's at 08 something. So I'm like, 080. I don't know what significance that time has, but maybe it has a significance. He says, maybe it's time for me to make changes. I don't like where that's headed because Lu Guang has established that we need to keep the timeline on track to ensure that we don't create too many variables. You creating an intentional variable, I don't know if Lu Guang is trying to throw off Vane and throw off Liu Zhao, or if he thinks that he can throw them off in a certain way and still be in control. this all seems like it could blow up in his face. And I'm like, Lu Guang. He's like, you got me. In the past few days, I feel like I picked up a lot of my English again. I should be fine. And Lu Guang's like, oh my God. I'll handle all the social stuff. Don't worry about it. So we go to this district. It looks like Chinatown in there. Looks like that. And then, of course, we see, hey, you look tasty. And Vane's like, you look tasty too. Vane is a vampire. They are vampires. They're doing a secret handshake. I don't like any of this. I'm here for the levity, but also, like, Vane is so scary. And look, and then Cheng holds his hands and looks over to Lu Guang like, I've made a friend. And Lu Guang's like, he's going to shoot you in a year. Like, with the fudge. He's like, look, Lu Guang, see, I have learned authentic English greetings. And of course, Felix thinks it's hilarious. Lu Guang's like, I am considering jumping off a cliff, but cool, let's do this. I don't like the red hot pot, not because it doesn't look tasty, it does, but the color red with Vane, as Vane is eating meat covered in duck blood, he is a vampire. I don't know how to feel about this. Tender as your flesh is also, I'm like, is he a cannibal? Is he a cannibal? Is he possibly going to try to eat these people? I'm a little worried about this. And the look that Cheng gives Felix, I am here for the bisexual Cheng agenda, and he is giving it to Felix, for sure. Being like, no wonder your boss doesn't like to speak Chinese. This analogy is quite unique. And Felix is like, you know. Also want to make note that Vane is sitting at the head of the table away from the other three, and the three of them are sitting away from him. I feel like that's a lotus on their chair as a symbol, but is it an eye as well? Show, you're just making us feel bad now. So then Lu Guang says, well, or Cheng says, we're looking for someone. And her name is Wang Qing. Of course, Vane stops mid-bite. And Felix says, Wang Qing. And he's like, yes. He's like, she should be the survivor that Uncle Fang mentioned. We found her information and we're following it up. Now, does Felix necessarily know Wang Qing? I don't think so. I'm going to talk about Felix in this scene and how I think he could be a red herring. Because Felix was clearly like 8 years old or a kid when she seems like she's 10 years older than Cheng and Felix, right? So if they're like 19 or 20, she's nearly 30 at this point, which would probably put her around the same age as Liu Xiao and Vane, coincidentally, allegedly. But I don't know for sure that Felix even knows who she is. If he got out of there and out of the fire, here's the thing too. It could be possible that Felix transferred. It could be possible that conversation that Cheng's dad was having with Felix was talking about maybe him transferring out of the school. Maybe Vane or someone got him out of the school before it burnt down. And Felix just knows about it, but wasn't there when it happened. Now, do I think it's weird that Felix didn't mention being a student at that school when the one guy said there was one survivor? Yeah, I think that's a bit suspicious and a bit weird. Why wouldn't you mention that? But who knows, you know? Or maybe the one survivor was supposed to be Felix and they just didn't say anything. And now that they're bringing up Wang Qing, they're like, because we say fake death ability user. Maybe they thought she was dead. And then when they mentioned her name, they were like, she should be dead. Felix is the survivor. So what's going on here? Can you help us find her? And of course, Vane is like, and Cheng's like, please. And Lu Guang's like, I'm just going to eat this meal and try to look as unsuspicious as possible. Okay, the back of the chairs is a lotus flower, not an eye. And so then Lu Guang looks over to Vane and he says, you guys you're not like involved, are you? Now, the involved line, what do we make of that? It's saying you're not involved. Are you involved in this school? Are you involved in this situation? And Cheng looks over to Lu Guang and Lu Guang's like, look, we just came across the fire story and thought it could be made into a video as a matter of personal interest. So when he says that to Vane, Vane does not believe that at all. Vane does not look like he believes that one bit. and seems to have alternate ideas about that. And the information we stumbled across it online. So Vane does not look like he believes it one bit. Then Felix is also giving Lu Guang a very disturbing look. But here's my thing about Felix. We know that Felix wants to know as few details as possible. So Felix's whole thing is that Felix owes Vane for saving his life and taking him in. But Felix has been hired by Liu Zhao to work for him. And Liu Zhao has hired him to spy on Cheng and Lu Guang. So if Felix also knows about the school and that's tied to Cheng's dad, he doesn't know all the details. Felix wants to stay out of this whole thing. But the problem is, because he's been hired to spy on Cheng and Lu Guang, now that Lu Guang and Cheng are getting deeper into this whole thing with the school, Felix is probably thinking, shit, I don't want to get involved and know what this is about, so why are you involving me? This is not going to lead... Felix just has this look on his face like, I don't trust you either, but I think the difference for me is I think Vane might know where this is headed and doesn't like it and is going to try to manipulate the situation. Whereas I think Felix knows that something's up and doesn't like it, but doesn't know all the details yet. I could be wrong, though. I could be wrong, but the two of them giving Lu Guang the death glares. Like, Lu Guang, you're not a good liar. And then Vane's like, oh, well. He's just like, I like that look he has on his face looks like he wants to murder Lu Guang, which is a face he's made before. And then he goes, oh, well. He's like, relax, bro. I'm like, no, that is not the correct answer to make you feel better. He's like, I'm just asking. Of course I can help. Felix's friends are my friends. And they're like, okay, but I'm not going to do it for free. So then it's like, well, what do we have to do for the information? You're going to have to serve me. He's like, I want him. Yeah, to serve me. Well, that's not sexual at all. We know he wants Cheng to model for him. Maybe it'll be something innocent like that. Maybe that'll be it. Maybe it'll be something innocent like modeling. Just do a model gig. That'll be fine. Nope. Okay. So the episode's called Reencounter, which seems to be what this episode was about. Go back through. We have the photo. We have the little gears of the clock. And then I wanted to go back. Lu Guang's in the hot seat, possibly to be interrogated. Then we saw Cheng inside the gears of the clock itself. And there's all these different eyes and all these things spinning around. Again, seeming like what was in the dad's office. And then there's that damn book with the eye. I wish they'd grabbed the book. I wish they would have seen what it was. But then we have her with the arm and the cast. And then we see her walking away again. Interesting. I don't know. I still feel like Felix is a pawn, but I don't know what to do with that. Okay. So, couple things. Anime Annie said that since episode 5, this is the first time that I've watched the ending, and I've wondered if our mysterious blonde with the hair up is the same blonde covered in the bandages. After seeing Wang Qing, I'm certain she's the bandaged person in the ending, but also pretty certain she's the tea drinking cipher person from the opening. And what if she's in the long sleeves in the opening to hide and cover the burns that she got from the fire at Bahati? We'll talk about the cipher here in a second because it is fascinating. Season 1 seemed like the parents left together. But with this arc, Xiaoling overheard Cheng Xiaoshi's mother talking about going to Bridon to Xiaoling's father and to not let Cheng go. So it's possible that she went over to see what was up with the dad and then just didn't come back alive. Or maybe they're both alive and well, hanging out, having a great time, and they just don't care about their son. We don't know. Going by the date of birth given on the school records, Wang Qing is about 10 years older than Cheng. Now, the cipher that has been the code in the OP, bless the internet and bless people with too much time on their hands, because there's been a community that has deciphered the OP cipher text. And y'all, here we go. Please note, this is from Reddit, of course, you know. Please note the first paragraph is partially cut out, so I've tried to fill in the blanks based on the partial letters I can make out. Bits that I'm sure of are between double slashes, but I'm going to read it like they have it. In the heart of the forest, a sudden fire started. Now, we had in season 2 a talk about forests and 2 foxes, which were the twins. That's going to come up here in a second. So we had the forest, and we had the twin foxes. And I think, if I'm remembering correctly, there was a fire in the forest. Also, Liu Xiao talks about being a hunter in the forest instead of an animal in the forest. He talks about that. So the fire in the forest, there's the question of, is the fire referring to the one at Bahati? Or is it referring to overall Lu Guang and Cheng Xiaoshi's meddling? Or is it referring to the dad and the school? How literal or metaphorical is this, or is it all of the above? It says, a panic spread among the animals. The fox tried directing the elephant to douse the flames. So, an elephant never forgets. So there's that. I wondered if, like, the fox is getting the elephant to douse the flames. Is the elephant referring to QL from our professor, or was it Jin? Was it professor? Was it the lawyer Jin in the last season? I don't forget if his name was was it Zhao? Was it Zhao Jin? I think that was it. Yes. The one that got arrested, the lawyer. Was he the elephant because he couldn't forget what happened and he was trying to correct all of the meddling and things going on? Maybe. It says, deer began to swiftly spread messages of urgency. Who are the deer? Are the deer seem like pawns? So are the deer necessarily like the civilians that we've looked at through the cases maybe? And then it says Raven, however, only cared about fleeing for safety. So is the Raven Cheng or Wang Qing? Or is the Raven Liu Xiao? The Raven being Liu Xiao would make a lot of sense because ravens are ominous and kind of symbols of death, which seems to fit Liu Xiao, but it could be Wang Qing. The forest succumbed to the fire's wrath, meaning that things were destroyed. Determined to prevent such tragedies, the animals hired a detective to uncover the culprit. What they discovered was beyond their wildest imaginations. At first, I thought maybe the detective could be Liu Xiao, who was hired to stop Lu Guang and Cheng Xiaoshi, but it makes much more sense for the detective to be Lu Guang, who was hired by all these deer and all these cases to figure out who the culprit is, which the culprit is Vane and Liu Xiao and them. And it says he believed the key to solving the problem was to eliminate all potential sparks that could ignite trouble. But that goes, I feel like that one could go in 2 directions, because I feel like the detective eliminating potential sparks, the idea of eliminating potential sparks seems like a Liu Xiao thing, that he would keep Lu Guang and them from meddling in time and causing disruptions, which could lead to the fire. But then I also feel like it could be Lu Guang saying that he's going to go back in time, prevent all the sparks from the Bridon arc so that the fire doesn't start that ends up killing Cheng. So and I've talked about this for an hour and 15 minutes, and we still have 1 episode to go, and I have a feeling that episode is going to be long. I feel like the episode's going to be a long one. I'm just saying. Oh my God. Yeah, no big deal. So I'm really excited to see what we get next week. I hope that it's a lot, because where we are now, there are so many questions, and we haven't even properly met Wang Qing in the present. So anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and I am so excited to see what we get next week, but I'll be back next week as we do the finale of the Bridon arc of Link Click. Bye.